So the Dplyr package provides facilities to transform our data and in turn makes it much more easier for data manipulation. There are 6 main verbs we use in Dplyr. We have select, filter, mutate, arrange, summarize, and group by. We're gonna go through all these different verbs. So let's look at the first one, select. So the select variable, or rather the select function, simply selects variables of concern. Okay, these variables are what we refer to as columns, okay, based on their names. It can also be thought of as a subset operator by column rather than by row. Let's look at a visual representation. So here we have our data set, right, in the form of a table. Okay, suppose we want to extract only contents for A and C by their name, right? So we use the select here. Our data frame will occupy the first argument, then anything that follows the comma, A and C is our variable of interest, the columns that we want to select, and this will be our output. Okay. So in this video, we're going to use the Gapminder package. So this is a standalone package. So we need to run or type this line of code, which will just check if you have that package. If not, then it will just install automatically and load the library. Okay. Similarly, we're going to use the diamonds package, or rather diamonds dataset, which comes from the ggplot package. Okay, so all we need to do is to load the tidyverse or load the specific library ggplot2. Then we're able to use some of these verbs, Dplyr verbs on this dataset. All right, so let's go to our R Markdown. So in this first video, series of video, we're going to look at the select command here, right? So by the end of all this, you should be able to familiarize yourself with all the 6 verbs. Okay. So the first thing you want to do here is to load the required packages. In our case here, we need to use the Gapminder package, which will give us the Gapminder dataset, and the Dplyr package, which comes from the tidyverse. Okay. So you can run this code. This code, what it does, it just checks, do you have the Gapminder package? If not, it will run this install the package automatically, and semicolon here, it will just load the library as well. Okay. If you're more familiar with this, you can just basically go and install tidyverse. Tidyverse will install all these suite of packages that we've already looked at. So then you can also install Gapminder separately. So the next thing is to load the Gapminder package, right? So we can do that, then the Dplyr. Okay. Then we type the Gapminder, want to view the Gapminder dataset. So I'll just run that, and you can see here we have 6 columns and about 1,700 observations. Okay. Again, it's good practice to spend some time to analyze and understand your data frame or data set. So there are a number of functions we can use to inspect our data. So a most common function is the enroll. So it's like how many observations we have. Of course, here we have a summary here. So we've used the enroll here. We pass our data set here, Gapminder. You can see we have 1,704. Other functions that you can use to inspect your data, just to gain some good understanding about the data at hand. You can pause at this point to just review all these different functions. I'll pick a few here. So let's say, for example, want to see the structure of our variable of interest, the continent. Okay, what kind of continents we have, right? So here, if I run that using the $, that means I just want to select this specific column. You can see we have 5 levels, right? So again, this doesn't give us much information, so we can use the levels here. So in terms of levels, right? So these are 5 levels, but how many individual levels are these really? So we can use levels and then pass the same variable of interest column using the $. Okay, you can see we have Africa all the way to Oceania. Okay, we can also return an integer value of how many continents we have. So think about this like, in SQL when you use distinct, although we have a function that we're going to be using in Dplyr to take care of that as well. So we have 5 levels. Okay, it just returns integer value. The class here is factor for this variable of interest. All right. So our first verb here is to, first of all, want to select variable of interest. So the syntax goes, so the select function here. So this is just one approach, one method of doing it. So first of all, the first argument here is our data set or data frame, okay, gapminder. Then anything that follows that is just the variable of interest, what columns we want to display, okay? So once we select that, we want to store in this variable here, object. This is almost like just our box, right? Then we call it back again to reveal the contents. So you can see here, we just did select. So initially we had 6 variables, right? 6 columns, but we decided just we want to display contents for only the 3 columns. And this is how it looks like. And you can see here, we have 3 columns, right? Suppose we want to remove a column, right? How do we go about that? So we can tell we can use the negative sign here. So we can say from this data frame, show us all the variables or all the columns except the continent, okay? Then you can store it in a variable or object, you know, should have meaning here. So here we just say removed underscore continent data, and then we call it back again. So to show the contents of our variable, you can see now they're less by 1. And if we see, we look closely, you'll see we don't have the continent, all right? Now, a better approach that we'll be using mostly also in Dplyr is using the pipe function. We've already seen the pipe function just helps us to achieve so much more, okay? So the pipe function basically allows us to just say, you know, and it kind of maps the cognitive process. So we say, here we just go from left to right. We're saying, load from this data set, gapminder, pipe it, basically just say, then get the contents of this, the output of this will be the argument. Then what do we want to do? So we use the select function, right? So we want to just select here. Remember here, we don't want to, we're gonna not use the data set again inside here. So here we just go into the variables of interest. So here we just want to display the year, country, and GDP. And that's it. And then we call back our object. So that will just give us the same results as before. So this is a cleaner version, and I think this is the best way to go using the pipe operator. So this just means you can combine, you can actually chain different functions together to just have a very powerful display of many functions into one output. Okay. All right, and then the diamond dataset comes from the ggplot. So you just want to load the library from ggplot, and then we can view the gap here. Here will just be the diamond dataset. Okay, so we run that. You can see we have 10 columns, right? If you use the help function, you'll see that this just descriptive summary. You can see it comes from the ggplot package, and then it just gives you some more information about what the price means, what the carat means, the cart, you know, we have fair all the way to ideal. That's what it means here. Okay. So again, we can use the select command here. So again, here we can get it from the diamonds dataset, and then we say, want to only display only these 4 out of 10. We want to display only this 4. Okay. If we run that, you can see we've kind of dissected or probably selected only the variables of interest, the columns. If you recall the knowledge on data frames, we can also use this column 1 to 4, meaning we want to just display from this first column all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4 to clarity. So it will just give you the same output. So I'll just go ahead and run that. Same thing. Alternatively, we also have this function called stats with. In fact, if you type here stats, you can see we have that. It comes from the Dplyr function. So this is a powerful function that just tells you, okay, so suppose here we just want to display only the columns that starts with C. Okay. So these are, so you should be able to see 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4, right? So if I run that, you should be able to see that. Okay, so again, we've put a justification, a case that we can use the pipe operator. So if we modify the same code as before, this is a better approach. So we just say from this data set, then we use the select, and then we just give whatever columns we want to display. And always remember to save this. So you can actually save it as, give it some useful name. So you can say diamonds data, right? Yeah, so once you run that, remember to call it back again, right? So we have that in order to display. Okay, right. So for in fact, here also we can you can try this exercise, right? So use the pipe operator. So the first part here just loads the gapminder, year, and life expectancy. So your turn here is just to try to alter that code and select the population column from the gapminder. Okay, you should be able to see an output similar to this if you modify this code using the pipe operator. Okay, so in our next video, we're going to look at the second verb using a filter.